Okay. Here we go. Tome 14, right? Oh, I don't have it here. This is like my only stinger that I have queued up at the moment because I don't really have a... I was going to try to work on something this weekend. I just don't have time readily available with some of the other stuff that's a little bit more pertinent. But this is just basically an abbreviated bumper. I want to make something for the 15th one. Something a little bit more special, and I just might use that for the default. But without further ado, Tome 14, Betrayal, everybody. Voila. Ta-da! Oh, I'm cutting everything off. Oh, man. Ta-da! That's all you get for right now. That's all you get for right now. Anyway. So, this is all the stuff that we've unlocked. And we get to see, I guess, what it's about here. I think it's Huntress and a few other people here. So here we go.
His village burns. Warriors on horseback, swinging their swords. Axes split skulls. Slaughtering. Butchering. His father fighting outside. His mother preparing something on the small wooden table. The screams rise to a crescendo. He stares at his mother. No concern. No panic. No fear. Her face is hard and determined as she prepares a thick black elixir that she says will help them sleep through the madness. She is their strength. She is his strength. He has never seen her in this way, and he feels safe despite the chaos and carnage outside their small thatched home. His mother hands his brothers and sisters small cups of the elixir. She turns to Tarhosh with a reassuring nod. She helps him drink his share, and tells him everything will be as it is supposed to be. Bitter and thick, the elixir oozes down his throat as the cries and screams and clangs rise and fall outside. Then he feels it. The numbness spreads from his lips to his feet. Faces blur, sounds fade, and an inky blackness spreads over his eyes as he falls asleep in his mother's warm embrace. Then there is silence. When he wakes up again, he finds himself crushed under the weight of mangled and mutilated bodies. Sightless eyes, slashed throats, strange sounds all around him. Horses neighing, children crying, knights laughing and making merry. Young Tarhosh stares at a ghastly face pushing up against his. He shifts slightly and narrows his eyes. The blurred features suddenly reveal his uncle, eyes wide and scared, mouth caught in a death scream. Tarhosh knows he should be scared. He knows he should feel sad, but he doesn't. And he knows he should feel guilty for not feeling sad, but he doesn't. What he feels, he doesn't understand or cannot put to words. He just stares at the horror before him without flinching. A hand suddenly grips his arm and pulls him out of the pit, and as he's carried away, he stares at his burning village in wonder as a high-pitched whine fills his ears.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. So I think Tarhos Kovacs is the knight. I don't know why I said huntress. Probably because there was like stuff on the riff that we just got for her and things like that. So I don't know why I said her, but and she already had her own tome as well, so I forgot about that as well. So I think this is just the knight and Vittorio, and then whatever miscellaneous stuff afterwards. Sorry about that. Anyway, moving on.
Decked in armor, Tarhosh travels on horseback through the mountains into Portugal. The lord he serves believes a relic, the Lapis Paradissus stone, is buried deep in the catacombs beneath the city of Sintra. Lord Toscano claims he isn't after riches, but hope. Hope that this stone can lead him to another world that holds knowledge that can save this one.
Ooh.
He prays that this lost knowledge of the ancient guardians might bring peace, harmony, and order to a world plagued by cruelty, violence, and imbalance. Tarhosh scoffs at the idea of a world without violence. Life is violence, from birth to death, and everything in between is a futile attempt by cowards to hide from the horror that is living. The only plague in this world are the lies, the unnatural codes and laws created by nobles and lords for their mutual benefit. Unnatural laws and codes and books that deny the truth of the world by trying to make it something it's not. Tarhosh believes something else. It's all good or none of it is. It's all evil or none of it is. It's all part of the same cosmic mud, the mystery that transcends the world and all its dualities. A mystery he never pretended to understand, but affirmed all his life with his sword and his disdain of those who used their laws to make their slaughter pious. Hypocrites, all of them. Not him. There's no guilt, no shame, and no need to hide from life. Now Toscano halts before a village and sees guards protecting the entrance of the catacombs. He sighs deeply and shakes his head. He has no wish to shed the blood of innocence, and turning his horse around, commands Tarhosh to find another way.
Tarhosh? That's an interesting way of pronouncing that. So this guy, the knight, I assume, is going to be the one that's like going to attack Vittorio here. Man, they're really direct with this.
Find another way.
Oh boy.
Disgust strikes him like a sword. He feels the blade pierce his chest, smacking the breath from his lungs. He has no words for this order. All he can do is stare defiantly. Find another way. Why? So Toscano can sleep at night? So he can waste more of his time with his foolish notions of right and wrong, of good and evil, of noble and barbaric?
Maybe.
Toscano's entire fortune was secured with violence and slaughter justified by highly imaginative codes and laws. His fortune was secured with nothing but darkness. Tarhosh grinds his teeth as disgust darkens toward hate. And he feels something else. He feels Toscano doesn't deserve the spoils of his ancestors, or his relics, or this ancient stone that will somehow open a gateway to a world untainted by violence. He's a fool if he believes such a thing. No such place exists.
Well...
And if such a place did exist, he would want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, okay.
He sighs and scrunches his fist. He wants to crush him like a maggot. Of all the lords he's served, this one he hates the most. He's heard enough of his notions of ancient guardians and their supposed superior wisdom. And as he watches Toscano ride away with his retinue, he decides he'll take it all. He'll take it all because he can. He'll take his stone and his relics and his town, and he'll show this bloody coward the truth of the world, the truth that has always lived in his heart, and no one will stop him. Not the guards in the village, and certainly not the 3 knights Toscano left behind. Without hesitation, Tarhosh dismounts his horse and unsheaths his sword with a terrible ring.
The 3 knights Toscano left behind, is that the goons that the knight can summon? The assassin, the Carnifex, and the jailer? I wonder. Let's keep going.
As the sun begins its slow descent, Tarhosh battles the 3 knights. They attack as one, and as one, they fall to his bloody sword.
I think they are.
The knight refuses to die and stands with a right arm dangling by sinews of flesh. He grips his bloody sword with his left hand and attacks. Tarhosh evades and plunges his sword through the metal mesh and into his chest. The knight catches his breath. crouches to his knees, mumbles some death-fearing words, then slumps down in the dirt. Then Tarhosh turns toward the village, where he feels the eyes of a dozen guards on him. They watch him from the shadows as Tarhosh marches toward the ancient catacombs of Sintra.
I keep seeing that as Sinatra. The town of Sinatra. Alright.
The guards stand outside the ancient door, strapping young men with crude swords. Tarhosh sees the fear in their eyes as they raise their torches to see who dares challenge them. At 6'6", Tarhosh knows he presents an imposing figure. He commands them to clear the way, but the guards draw their weapons, and Tarhosh feels a darkness crawling out of his heart and into his veins. He grips his sword tightly as guards close in on him from every direction. He glances around, unafraid. Then one guard shouts some nonsense about honor and things that are sacred, and they scream their anger and attack in unison.
Just shouts gibberish.
Time slows to a crawl as Tarhosh fights through the guards. His sword gleams in constant motion under the setting sun, whirling to sever limbs, smash backs, and slice necks. The guards shout and leap with a burning need to protect the dead. Tarhosh burns with a stronger fire to affirm life in all its pain, agony, and horror. The last standing guard runs for his life, screaming for mercy. Tarhosh strikes him down and turns to the ancient wooden door with a wicked smile. He wipes the blood off his blade, then picks up one of the fallen torches and steps into the darkness. Death surrounds him, fills his nostrils. Not the decomposing flesh of those buried over the centuries, but the rotting bodies of the rodents and vermin that called this necropolis home.
Yeah. Come on, get on with it.
His torch illuminates ancient walls constructed of stone and skulls and bones arranged in oddly ornate displays. He feels the presence of countless lost and terrified souls. Cowards, all of them. He finds one skeleton impaled on a spear that sprang from the wall, a trap the ancients set to prevent treasure seekers from finding the stone.
Well, who would reset the trap?
He finds the remains of other dead adventurers in pits filled with spikes, crushed by boulders, torn in half by swinging blades. He feels a presence guiding him, dark, cold, primal. A paving stone clicks as he steps on it, and a razor-sharp scythe springs from the wall in a deadly arc. He drops to his knees, the blade whistling above, the deadly edge nearly decapitating him. Tarhosh uses his torch to burn spiderwebs. The sticky strands cling to him as he pushes forward. Massive spiders, furry and thick, scramble over his armor, searching for flesh. He brushes them off with his torch, setting them ablaze. In another cavern, he startles a giant cauldron of bats. They screech and flap, slamming into Tarhosh as they make their chaotic escape, nearly knocking him off his feet. Sweat burns his eyes, and he blinks it away as he forges ahead. A trapdoor drops beneath his feet, and Tarhosh falls, grabs the edge, barely holds on. With the full weight of his armor weighing him down, he uses every ounce of strength to lift himself to safety. Finally, he finds himself on a narrow path to an ancient and ornate sepulchre. He strains and pushes to move the ledger stone that covers it. Inside, he finds the skeleton of an ancient warrior in his armor. The metal is tarnished, not rusted, and a large stone talisman lays against the warrior's breastplate. The Lapis Paradisus.
Okay, so he gets the lapis, which I think is... I forget which... I know lapis lazuli is like a blue gemstone, because I remember that from Resident Evil 4, which is, kind of a hot topic right now. But, the lapis paradisius. Interesting. I wonder if that's what they're referring to early on, was like the Hope Diamond. Also, how did we get onto Vittorio 2 somehow on, like, Indiana Jones shit here? Like, bit of a turn in the story.
Tarhosh retraces his steps as his torch dims and dies, plunging him into darkness. He feels his way ahead, past the same deadly obstacles.
I guess this might explain how he turns into the knight, then.
Blades, countless spiders skitter over his armor, probing for a way inside. He detects a tiny glimmer of light that gradually grows until finally he emerges from the catacombs. With renewed vigor, he contends with a few surviving guards as he passes through the village, finds his horse, and sets off into the dark. Upon returning to camp, Tarhosh finds dozens of warriors and knights waiting to make him pay for his dishonor. They attack with a terrible scream. Tarhosh evades death blows and senses his fatigue, and he knows they are beyond his strength to defeat. But Tarhosh also knows it's not his strength defeating them, nor is it his skill. He's only a vessel for the darkness, and the darkness, shaped by his skill and size, fights through him, dispensing heads, limbs, and torsos like something inspired, like something divine. Toscano wades into the mayhem and screams for the violence to stop. Tarhosh holds the talisman high, and Toscano's eyes grow wide as they take in the arcane symbols. If you want it, you must take it. Bend your knee, or face my sword. At once, Toscano orders his men to put down their swords, refusing to be the cause of more slaughter. They all bend their knees and bow their heads, and Tarhosh takes Toscano prisoner.
So the knight's got the jewel or whatever, and then he's like, "Hey, Vittoria, look what I got!" Ha ha ha. Let me see here. So he's got, okay, I guess it's a talisman. Okay. Moving on.
Tarhosh enters the dungeon and looms above Toscano, who sits cross-legged on the ground, surrounded by decomposing limbs and heads, and an infestation of maggots.
That's nice.
Toscano looks up at Tarhosh. Then his troubled eyes lower to a dripping basket in his hands. Tarhosh kneels before Toscano and opens the basket as though he were about to share bread and wine with him. But instead of food and drink, he pulls out a head, examines it, and asks his name. Cavalieri. Tarhosh places the head in a pile of festering heads so that the wide eyes are staring at Toscano. Then he pulls out another severed head. Arno. He was a coward, you should have heard him beg. Tarhosh pulls out two other gory heads and places them so that they all stare at their lord with wide, terrified eyes. He then pulls out the last head and holds it in the dancing torchlight. I liked him. He didn't beg. I think I'll keep this one. Tarhosh places the head back into the basket. He stares at Toscano for a long moment, then stands and exits the dungeon, leaving Toscano with a few more heads to keep him company and perhaps to help him remember where he hid his secret books and relics.
That's kind of cold-blooded.
Books and relics rumored to have been salvaged from another world, a world described as perfect. And to Tarhosh, this could only mean a world without all the lies and pretenses of civilization.
So I guess he's holding him hostage now, and then it's like, hey, here's all the heads of your fallen brethren. Just to kind of torture him and in a way, play head games with him. Aha! Alright, moving on.
Tarhosh approaches the dungeon door, but doesn't open it. Through a small opening, he stares at Toscano, lying on the ground with the maggots. A thick wall of flies makes it difficult to see. I would have thought you would have crushed the maggots by now rather than live with them. Toscano's eyelids open slowly, but he doesn't respond. The nobles are preparing to attack me. And why? Because I am doing what they do, only without the lies. They say I am mad. Tarhosh scoffs. Do I seem mad to you? Life is madness, and I accept it for what it is. So perhaps in that way, I am mad. Tarhosh opens the door, enters slowly, and crushes several maggots as he paces around the small dungeon.
What is with the maggots? We get it.
I remember a village we destroyed because a man had stolen food from a noble. The entire village in ruins and everyone hacked to pieces because of a few stolen apples. So much suffering and death because of one man's hunger and another man's ego. That's the history of the world, right there. Tarhosh fixes his gaze on Toscano, who says nothing. I didn't mind the killing, but I did mind the praise and honors we were given for our just and pious deeds. That kind of talk is true madness. Tarhosh pushes through a cloud of flies and approaches Toscano. He stares at the symbols scratched into the floor and laughs to himself.
Uh-oh. Vittoria's gonna pull off some fucking mystical shit here, I feel. Or maybe not, I don't know.
Tarhosh enters the dungeon and squats beside Toscano, handing him a wooden vessel of warm water. He watches his prisoner drink it down, then smiles at the growing collection of symbols on the ground. You should see what I've done with the town. I've made similar symbols with cadavers, and I've recently added old rivals to my rather impressive displays. I also have old friends helping me prepare to battle a small army closing in on us from every direction.
Uh-oh.
A righteous army, here to put an end to my evil. Tarhosh breathes in the stench of rotting humanity. But something tells me they aren't coming for me. From what I've heard, a few nobles desire what you've been hiding from me.
Uh-oh.
Which makes me wonder, what exactly have you been hiding from me? I offered the nobles the stone, but that didn't seem to interest them in the least. What makes this knowledge you have hidden from us so special? Tarhosh wipes away a pile of maggots from the floor to reveal a symbol. Not this knowledge of a perfect world. Tarhosh scoffs. What you don't understand in all your wisdom is that the world is perfect as it is.
Debatable.
It is. And if you don't get it here and now, it doesn't matter where you end up or what knowledge you find. You will always be looking for something more. Tarhosh stares at Toscano for a long, pensive moment. Paradise will come when you make peace with life as it is, and not the way you imagine it should be. When you embrace the horror instead of running.
That should be a t-shirt.
Only when you can do this will you see the madness of your ways. Your futile search for knowledge, your foolish refusal to take a life. Even the life of a groveling maggot. Tarhosh pounds a fist and crushes several maggots into a squirming white paste. Then he picks the splattered pieces off his hand, stares at them curiously, and flicks them into the gaping mouth of a severed head.
What the hell?
He stares at the head, remembering. There was a village, quite far from here. A small army advanced on this village on a mission, I suppose, to butcher the barbarians. To make this world a better place. Rather than be killed by a stranger or be taken as a slave, these villagers had chosen to die by their own accord. Tarhosh scoops a few more maggots and tosses them into the mouth. I remember one mother had poisoned her family, without hesitation or remorse. The love and strength of will it must have taken to do that. Something I've yet to see in all my experiences on the battlefield and off. I have been around nobles and knights my whole life, and all I've seen is cowardice steeped in the rotten stew of lies and hypocrisy. Tarhosh tosses one last maggot into the festering mouth, stands upright, walks through a thick cloud of flies, and pauses in the torchlit doorway. I have yet to meet her equal. Then he shuts the door with a clang, leaving Toscano in the growing darkness.
Okay, cool. Maybe Vittoria's gonna get something with those symbols, and then he's gonna summon a way out of the weird dungeon that he's trapped in now, I guess. I don't know. Alright, cool. I mean, this is a good way to establish that the Knight's like a fucking pretty big, mean badass, but he does not reflect like that at all in the game. He's a big cheeseball that everybody hates for different reasons. So, let me read. Hold on, I want to reread something in the first section here. So I'm guessing the village that they were attacking might be the Shattered Square, at least some part of it, I would say. I wouldn't say the entirety of it, but that explains the map, you know, and why it's like just in ruin and decimated the way it is. And I guess the ooze that they were alluding to was referenced there in that last section, I think. I don't know. So yeah, he was talking about this last part here. Hold on. Yeah, one mother had poisoned her family without hesitation or remorse. The love and strength of will it must have taken to do that is something I've yet to see in all of my experiences on the battlefield and off. I've been around nobles and knights my whole life, and all I've seen is cowardice steeped in a rotten stew of lies and hypocrisy. And then that, when he's referencing his mother who poisoned him, and then that's how he became Evil Knight, I guess. I don't know. Because the elixir, I guess, transformed him into the monstrosity that he is now. And just a cold-blooded badass just playing with maggots and such. Crushed under the weight of mangled beauty, yeah. Sightless eyes, slash throats, yeah. So. I guess we face pushing up against it. He looks sad, but he doesn't. When it feels he doesn't understand or can't put in a word, he just stares at the horror before him without flinching. Hand suddenly grips his arm and pulls him out of the pit. As he's carried away, he stares at the burning village and wonders as a high-pitched whine fills his ears. Okay. Weird. Yeah, so they really don't... I don't know. They kind of do like a haphazard job of like going from pre-night to... Hey, this guy kills people now. And he's fucking around with Vittoria. Alright. Anyway, let's see what the cutscene entails. That's just a log. Okay. I like the hands over the helm of the knight there. Yeah! That looks awesome. Is that an unlock for the knight, or no? Where's that outfit? Hold on. Hold on. Do we have that outfit? Because that would totally rule. Hold on. Dun, 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 dun. By the way, we're still on Epic, for the record. Do we have that outfit? Oh. What? How did I miss this on the Rift? Oh, weird. That actually looks dope. I like it. How did I miss out on that? Man, this is the frustrating part. Like I said, they treat the knight like such a badass in that entire reading there. And he's a big fucking dope in this game. Like, it's so frustrating. Yeah, I like that outfit. I love the justice scale there on the back. I didn't even realize I unlocked that. Where do you get that at? On the Rift. How did I even recapped the Rift? Like, how did I miss it? What the fuck? Maybe I was just like, oh, here, okay. Oh, that's from the Deep Rift, okay. But where... I might have just saw it and just, like, bypassed it completely or something. I don't know. Because that's the alternate version of that. I believe. Oh, you just get it early on? Really? What? Okay, so that's that part. And then it's like Deathslinger. Where's the hat part? Oh, yeah, it's all the way at 68? No wonder I didn't notice it. And it's in the free path as well, huh? Why would they do that? Why would they put just this all the way over here at the start, not give you the sword till 31, and then 68 you get the fucking headpiece for it? Like, that's kind of... it's behavior, I get it. There's not much explaining with what they do. Yeah, that's awesome. That outfit is a slay, I agree. Hold on, let me go back here. So yeah, that outfit is pretty dope. So he's carrying out the log, I guess, full of symbols and whatnot to do something, and then he just gets ambushed by some peasant, and then he just is like, take that, you know, and he just... he's a complete badass! He doesn't need goons, man. But yeah, the way it was sketched out in the cutscene looked pretty badass, like I said. Like, it's so frustrating, man. And I've said this before, like, I think it would add, like, a whole new level to the game if, like, you could kind of play out the animated cutscenes and whatnot. And I don't know, I feel like you could tie an unlock to it or some sort. Like, hey, you did this thing and you got all the pages here. You've unlocked such and such, you know? Man. There's like, I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential that DBD's just not doing because, you know, they have no reason to, or they're just resting on their own laurels to say the least. But like, I feel like that could just add a new excitement to the game. Is like, oh, new tomes out, you know, new outfits obviously, but if you complete the playable cutscene or something like that, it gets you the unlock for that. Like, I would love it if you could just, you know, slay people as the knight there, like throughout that, and then you get that outfit, you know? Like that would be kind of cool, rather than scatterbraining it across the rift, which is honestly I just don't. Maybe I commented on it and was like, oh, that looks cool or something like that, but like maybe I don't know. Maybe I was in a different mood. Maybe I was in a bad mood or something, but because I think it was around the time when Knight was still kind of like, you know, it was still kind of popular and people were still just being an ass with them. So maybe that kind of just soured on me. But yeah, I think there's just an untapped potential of like just a different way of presenting content to the player and just rewarding them for all their endeavors here. Because like if they're going to add, instead of adding stuff from the Rift to the store, they should at least have it. There should be at least a grace period where you can get it through the Tome and things like that for free, you know, or for free. But I don't know. Depends on how much bank they're making through the store. All right, moving on. This is Vittorio's side of things, so I wonder if it's going to detail him getting captured and then how he's going to get out of that cave, or maybe he just fucking dies in whatever dungeon he's just rotting in with all those decapitated heads.
He cannot see through the column of black fog that surrounds him, but he knows he is falling. He does not know if he's spinning or if his mind is bursting with exultant joy. Those symbols, those desperate scratchings on the floor of his cell, they worked. He was a prisoner.
This narrator's putting in the work.
He is
Holy
free. The spinning intensifies. Bile tickles the back of his throat.
Ugh.
He clenches his jaw, but at last his mouth is forced open, and from his lips spews black fog. It dances around him, flowing through the tangles of his unwashed hair and twisting around his bleeding fingers. This darkness, this foul miracle, is within him as well. It's a fascinating sensation, and he does not resist. He wants nothing more than to give himself over to it. The world as he knew it is gone, easily forgotten. But no, I will not lose myself. I am Vittorio Toscano, Lord of Portoscuro, scholar.
He's narrating
collector
himself?
of forgotten knowledge. I seek the great observers who live beyond existence. I want to know all they know. The freefall stops, and his feet find solid ground. The last wisps of fog escape his mouth. The column of fog lifts, and in its place stands a derelict village, much smaller than his seaside domain. This is not the paradise he had read about.
What?
But of course, the pursuit of knowledge is never so easy. Wherever I am, this is just the beginning of my journey. I have not lost myself yet. The word lingers in his mind.
I love how it's gone from like, I am Vittorio Toscano. The freefall stops and his feet find solid ground. The column of fog lifts, and in its place stands a derelict village. Much smaller than the seaside domain. Like, the shift in tone from the narration was a trip there. Tales of Red Crane? Yeah, I don't know. They've been kind of, like, jumping around, because lately it's been, like, for the most part, detailing, like, the guy in the, who's living in the tower in, like, some ether somewhere, where, like, things kind of started attacking him, and they never really got back to that. I really would like it if we did, but I don't know. We'll figure that out. I don't recall Red Crane as a character in these, but we'll come across that bridge shortly and whatnot. Okay, so I guess Vittorio found a way out of, let's see, he was a prisoner, but now he's free. So I'm not sure if he got out of the cave that the knight set him in. So I'm guessing it's continuing from there. And then the black fog is usually not a good sign, because that indicates that, like, you're entering the fog, basically. You're entering the world of DBD. So that's mentioned throughout different stories and things like that. Continuing onward.
Vittorio's eyes water from the stench as he explores the main street. What manner of village was this? The street is made not of stone but sand, and even the most portentous buildings here, the tavern, the jail, the banking house, are small, humble things made even smaller and humbler in their abandoned state. The first sign of life Vittorio encounters is in the lodging house, a huddled mass, shivering in the entryway at the base of a collapsed staircase. Excuse me. Tell me, what place is this? The huddled mass raises her face to him, but all he sees is a void. You wonder about the smell. I smell it too.
Did we just plane shift into where I think
What
we
does it
went?
smell like to you? He knows the answer to her question, but dares not say it. He backs away. She falls to his feet, grabbing his ankles. Don't go. He knew you were coming. He told me to keep you as long as I could. Arms emerge from behind Vittorio and grab him around the chest, throwing him against the wall. Vittorio feels the whole of the lodging house shudder. He falls to the floor. The building crackles all around as the attacker straddles Vittorio and pulls something from beneath his draping robe.
Hey now, wait a minute.
I'm unharmed. I have nothing. The robed man doesn't listen. In his hand is a mechanical nightmare, a torture device from another world. Vittorio bats at the man to no avail. I'm weak. I'm hungry. Beams of wood fall from the ceiling. The robed man rips open Vittorio's threadbare doublet and buries the device into Vittorio's chest.
Oh, is it the blight injecting
And
him?
a natural drone fills his ears.
Wait a minute.
Dust falls from above and stings his eyes. The building is collapsing. I must act quickly. Vittorio digs his fingernails into the soft wooden floor and carves some well-remembered symbols.
That voice actor is his pussy into? Oh, is his whole pussy into this? I see. Yeah, this narrator's pretty good. It's just the way he was shifting in tone in the first page there was kind of hilarious to me. The robed man doesn't listen to his mechanical nightmare, torture device from another world. Huh. Torture device from another world. Okay. Maybe it's not Blade.
The world changes as he finishes scratching the symbols.
He's
The
plane
robed
shifting
man
again.
looked up at the falling beam and was gone, just as quickly. Vittorio had lost sight of the woman long before then. The attacker, such aimless violence. From a young age, Vittorio saw violence as a form of madness, a symptom of some illness that most could not overcome. Even his most trusted knight, the Hungarian,
What?
could not resist the allure of violence. Only when his mind...
Is that what the knight is called? The
The
Hungarian?
rustle of leaves blowing in the wind.
Alright.
Dark sunlight breaks through the canopy above. A forest. Vittorio rises, and pain shoots through his chest. His chest! His injury! The
Ow.
robed man with his instrument of pain. He must have injected me with
It
poison.
has to be Blight. It has
His
to be.
ripped doublet and looks at the marks above his breast. He was neither stabbed nor injected. The robed man had drawn on him.
Oh, I guess not. All right, maybe not.
Remembers reading of the Celts and their methods of creating permanent art on their bodies. He remembers a word that he's never heard before, a word from a time beyond his own. Tattoo.
Oh, this is just how he gets the marks
But
on
why
his
would his
torso,
assailant do this?
I guess.
He looks at the marks. They're incomplete. The lodging house collapsed and Vittorio escaped, interrupting his work. Perhaps
Man.
these marks have powers akin to my symbols. He copies them into the dirt of the forest floor and waits. The gentle breeze against dense leaves. No other response. His focus drifts. Vittorio has not eaten in many days, and his body aches with hunger. I could barely fight off the rope man. Any greater threat will be the end of me. He forges and forces himself to eat a handful of leaves and berries.
Leaves and berries,
But
wow.
he feels some strength restored.
Yeah, you're eating poison ivy, dude.
Last, I need more. Perhaps a hearty meal awaits me in another realm.
Yeah, just plain shift into like a
This
Denny's
settles into the
somewhere.
dirt. Through the trees, voices scream. Vittorio runs to the sound. He knows he shouldn't, but these screams sound different. They sound like home. The screams dig through Vittorio's ears, into his very mind, as he runs through the forest. I know these voices. He nearly falls into a pit of thorny brambles, so deep is his desperation. He studies the pit and marvels at its depth for just a moment before the screams call him again. Vittorio knows these voices, knows their screams, the screams of his people as Kovac brought terror and despair to his domain.
Kovac
For
is
days,
the knight.
Vittorio heard nothing else
Hungarian,
from his
if you will.
cold, dark cell. Only screams as the people he swore to protect were slaughtered, one by one. A clearing.
The
He
Borgo.
passes, and the screams linger at his back. He returns
The
to the
Borgo
clearing
map.
and looks down. What is this illusion at my feet? A baby bird, perhaps fallen from a nest. The bird opens its beak, and the screams of Portoscuro come forth. Vittorio kneels over the wretched thing. He blinks, and the bird is in his hands. He studies it. So small, so withered. His stomach calls to him. There's meat on this creature. It screams again. Stop! Stop screaming!
Oh no.
Its neck must be so delicate.
Oh
A pinch
no,
of
he's gonna eat a
and the
baby
screams
bird.
will stop, and you will eat.
Oh no.
His hands tremble. They close in on the bird. It opens its eyes for the first time, big, wet eyes, full of soul
Oh
and sadness.
no.
He stops himself. How easy it is to give in to the madness. A little hunger, and I was ready to kill a harmless little bird. No, I will not lose myself. Vittorio relaxes his grip. The bird sinks its beak into his palm. He tries to drop the creature. It hangs from his hand, tearing his skin and drinking his blood, a vile leech that grows with every gulp. At last, he grabs the thing and throws it into the forest. The grown beast returns in a billow of red and black fog, a charging behemoth with wings that cut through the trees and a beak dripping with blood. There is nowhere to hide. The brush is too thick to navigate, but the beast moves in great strides without effort.
Artist?
Runs along the path, a tremor in his legs, and he stumbles. A plan forms in his mind. Keep going. I can feel that thing's breath on me. The beast snaps at his back, the sound of cloth tearing, the dull pain of blood welling. He turns a corner moments before the beast and sees his plan before him. Life and death condenses to a single moment, and action made quicker than the speed of thought. He avoids the pit of thorny brambles. but the beast, too immense in size and weight, cannot stop itself from falling in.
Or Oni.
The sound of a bone cracking, an otherworldly shriek, and Vittorio remembers his darling horse, Domenico.
That's a good name.
Vittorio watches the beast writhe in the pit, clawing at the edges, but unable to gain purchase. He sits, eats more leaves, and stares the beast in its great, wrathful eyes without blinking. The search for the observers continues. In his own time, Vittorio grabs a stick, carves his symbols in the dirt at his feet, and leaves the beast behind.
Something tells me Vittorio's just going to wind up as a vegan here. The search for the observers, huh? Oh, I wonder if the observer with the Oris and the whiskey and whatnot, what I usually highlight in the intro and things like that now. I wonder if he's related to Vittorio somehow, because the observer did wind up plane shifting into that weird medieval looking area with like that crow eating an eyeball. I wonder if that's tied in somehow, and we're finally, this is like the weird payoff to it. Oh man. Okay.
Vittorio examines his surroundings in this new realm, and he weeps. It is unlike any larder he has ever seen, but he recognizes it as such all the same. Fruits and vegetables, withered and wilting, dried meat curing as it hangs from the ceiling, mounds of pungent butter resting atop an empty icebox, wheels of cheese stacked on shelves, water dripping from a rusty spigot. He ignores the rotting produce and focuses on the well-aged meat and cheese.
Yeah, that's probably still
The
edible.
capricious symbols have granted me a modicum of kindness this time. Vittorio remembers the sight of wild dogs tearing at a doe's carcass when he was a young boy. The only thought that forms in his mind as he eats and drinks in a blind mania. When he returns to his senses, he finally feels the pain of the injuries he sustained. The bird beast tore a nasty wound in his hand and ran its beak across his back. He washes his black
Vittorio's just
hands
eating like a
under the
fucking
spigot.
cartoon character, just
Thankful,
engorging himself.
The water runs clear. His doublet hangs from him in tatters, only fit to use as a rag to scrub his back. Vittorio pulls the doublet off his shoulders and starts at the sight of the markings on his chest. More than just the small tattoo given to him by his assailant. How many goes that now? The tattoo has grown, with even more symbols and markings spreading outward. That first tattoo, the origin point. He forgets about cleaning his back
0
and
point?
studies the new tattoos.
Gummy worms, by the way.
They look familiar, and it takes little time for Vittorio to recall a page of runes in his studies. He recognizes some of those runes here, growing across his chest to his shoulder. Is the tattoo growing still? The single door out of the larder is locked. No matter. As he draws his well-worn symbols on the tile floor using a jar of jelly, Vittorio prays that his next destination will be as fortuitous as this one. Still no closer to finding the observers, Vittorio finds himself in a dimly lit room. The floor and walls are dirt. I'm underground. Dirt falls, and the ground quakes. A loud explosion from up above. I cannot stay here. He shivers. I'm all but naked. His eyes land on a pile of discarded clothes. Some leather, some coarse linen, all of it sweet relief. The outfit he chooses is oversized but immediately brings warmth. Another explosion, and Vittorio brushes the dirt off him as it rains down. Best to leave now. Vittorio digs his fingers into the dirt wall, but stops when he realizes he is not alone. Put your hands above your head, now! The voice is coarse and clicks as if the speaker has something caught in its throat. Vittorio obeys the directive. Turn! Face me! Vittorio does, and finds himself before a feathered soldier, red and black, with a pronounced beak and eyes of screaming gold. In this thing's hand,
The
is a weapon
artist!
beyond Vittorio's understanding. What are you? Vittorio already knows the answer. The bird beast he left in that forest pit, screaming in pain. This soldier looks like the spawn of some profane alliance between that beast and something on the verge of being human.
Okay, maybe
The
not the
soldier
artist.
is soon flanked by others of its kind, and they lead Vittorio down a narrow hallway. They prod at his back as they force him up a stairway to an open door in the ceiling, a door to the surface. Vittorio flinches at the explosions that dot the landscape up above. A battle rages in the distance, and around him, uniformed beasts corral other humans into cages and carts. Prisoners of war. In my escape from captivity, I find myself a prisoner once again.
Yeah, just plane shift out of there again,
A
Vittorio.
familiar
Come on.
screech rings through the air, and the beastly soldiers stop their plunder. They drop to their knees and look up at the large, winged behemoth, resplendent in its red and black feathers, its leg healed but twisted as it soars overhead.
Look, come on. Vittorio wasn't going to eat one of his. That's got to be some brownie points there. Come on. Let him go. I do find it wild that it's like, hey, we've got bird soldiers, but they're not necessarily associated with the artists, at least not yet here. Huh.
His hands are bound behind him, the tips of his fingers just barely able to touch each other. A thick post scratches his back as he struggles, and Vittorio feels the old wound from how long ago he cannot remember opening again. The great behemoth had dug its sharp beak into his back once upon a time. Now it wants to complete the hunt. Other prisoners scream nearby. Vittorio tries to ignore them. He stretches his arms behind him as far as they can go. It's only rope that binds him here. Rope can stretch. Rope can break. I will carve the symbols into the palm of my hand if I have to. The soldiers bark a command, and one of the prisoners screams louder than the others. Don't look. Focus. Even with his eyes turned downward, Vittorio can feel the tremble of the ground and see the flurry of feathers as the behemoth lands. Don't look. A whip of its neck, and the screaming prisoner is gone from his post. The behemoth gulps, its open beak turned to the sky. Don't look. I should have killed that thing when I had the chance. I should have made a fist around that wicked little hatchling and squeezed until it stopped moving. This hellscape is my doing. How many have died because of my mistakes? He hears the people of Portoscuro as he heard them in his cell. I hardly remember that cell now, but I remember those screams. I was the cause of those screams. I brought Kovac to my land. I thought I could control him. I thought I could hold sway over the realms. I thought I could find the observers. All he knows has been wrong, and all around him are the consequences of his failings. Something snaps. His hands fall to his sides. did I manage to sever that rope? The behemoth is above him now, looking down at his final offering. The other prisoners are gone. Only one remains. Vittorio looks up at his old nemesis. His bones tell him to run, to carve his symbols into the dirt and escape. But why? Let there be one last death so no one else needs to suffer from my mistakes. The behemoth plunges its head downward, and all is dark and silent.
Oh boy. They keep oh man, I'm struggling to remember the significance of the observers, because I think it's been referenced before. I'm not sure in the previous tome, which I really should probably go back and re-listen to and bone up on. I gotta see how Vittorio's tied in with that, if that is the case.
It's you. I remember you from long ago. Vittorio wakes to a kind face looking down at him. A familiar face. She who was once a void to him is now something else. Yeah, I remember. I was here once. Vittorio sits up and brushes debris from his legs. The collapsed staircase. The fallen ceiling. What was this? The lodging house. She brushes his face with twisted fingers. I was devoured. Consumed.
Vord.
Yes, as was I. He can feel her pity. The winged demon is a creature of the abyss. It feasts on worlds, although I hear on the wind there are creatures even stronger with greater appetites. The room shudders. Something churns outside the lodging house. I must get out of here. I must get outside. Vittorio is on his feet, hands reaching for the door. Even great force does not move it. Here, let me. The woman puts a gentle hand on the door, and it obeys. But there is no outside on the other side of the door. More memories stir within him.
Has to be.
A place not as distant as the lodging house, but still far away. The smell of the place is what is most familiar. Rotting fruit and vegetables, curing meat, wheels of cheese torn to pieces, a rusty spigot where the water still runs clear. I was hungry. I gorged myself in this larder. Why is it here? Another realm devoured. She holds the rotting food. Vittorio rests against the wall. What is done is done. There is no escape.
Death is not an escape.
This? The woman runs her hands over his tunic. It's open off his shoulders in a swift motion. Her hands touch his chest, his arms. These markings.
Getting the first base with Vittorio.
Looks at his own body and sees how far the tattoos have grown. They extend across his torso down the length of his arm. The woman walks around him, running her hands across his back. Are they there as well? The man in the robe. He planted the seed in your chest. How long it has taken to grow. Vittorio dresses himself again. My attacker. Is he here? No. He left me shortly after you did. He left a note. Perhaps he knew you'd return for it when the time was right. She hands him a roll of papyrus. No greeting marks the page. No message he can understand. Only more symbols. This madman did not even finish his writing. Vittorio has seen enough of these symbols to know the symbols on the page are incomplete. Incomplete. The word awakens a memory. The tattoo the attacker left on him. The seed in his chest. Vittorio had tried using these symbols, but they too were incomplete. The blood on his fingers is dry. He licks the old wounds, picking at scabs, creating new red ink. Vittorio drags his finger across the papyrus, drawing the seed that was planted in his chest. The message is a puzzle to be solved, and that first tattoo is the missing piece. The room around him shimmers. Somewhere in his mind's eye, he sees a place far away. A menacing hook hanging from a stand. The man in the robe reaching out, urging him onward. Vittorio paces, his mind a flurry of revelation. It was him. I've spent time beyond measure in search of the observers, when an observer had found me long ago. All I wanted was to share in their knowledge, and all this time it has been on my body. He didn't attack me. He gave me a gift. He chose me. Vittorio feels the woman watching him as he marches into the larder. All he can hear is the low rumble and churn from outside. He finds a knife in the drawer. My journey must go on. The observer chose me. I will get out of here. I will find his realm. I just need to copy his mark. The papyrus was in his hands, but now is gone. I must be losing my mind. He tries to remember the symbols in their entirety, but they fade from view like waking from a dream. He lets out a bitter laugh and reminds himself of what he already knows. The pursuit of knowledge is never so easy. The old symbols will not do. They never gave me the power to travel as I please. The realms they brought me to were random, often hellish.
Hoping that the next leap would be the leap home.
My body is the key to complete control over travel across realms. Somewhere on my body are the symbols that will bring me to this observer.
That's
to his
what it
realm,
is. It is
and the
tied to
perfect
him.
world that lies out there somewhere. He stands in front of a shattered mirror, studying his chest, arms, and back. The scrawls are illegible, unfamiliar. I must be very careful. These symbols could spell my ruin if I do not use them correctly. That's when he sees it. The familiar swirls and circles he has used so far. The symbols for traveling between random realms. But there's more. Jagged lines and smaller shapes like accents around the symbols, modifying them, changing their meaning. Clarity strikes. This is the key I have been looking for. Vittorio drives the knife into the wall of the lodging house and begins to carve. A guttural scream vibrates through the room. Blood wells from the carvings and runs down the wall. I've never been violent before. Never in my life have I ever harmed anyone. I've never had to. Such was the luxury of my life as I knew it. But that life is behind me now. He runs the knife across the wall with precision, remembering every accent and nuance he never knew he needed. The walls shudder. The blood does not stop. The wailing intensifies. Vittorio feels her lips by his ear. The power is yours now. For now. And then she's gone.
Yeah, so this has to be tied to the observer that we know of in the tower and all that. Did they actually do it? Did they actually put a form of the observer as Vittorio? Would they do that? Would they actually do that? That would be kind of a scapegoat, like a cheap scapegoat, I feel. Oh man. I hope that's not the case. I mean, it'd be kind of cool if that is what it is to be revealed, but I don't know. That's kind of a lame way of doing it. Alright.
The sun sets over the distant hills, and the air smells of sulfur as Vittorio opens his eyes and looks upon a simple wooden shack. The ground squishes beneath his feet.
Ugh.
Vittorio looks around and finds he is standing on a mound of blood, offal, and red and black feathers. Between him and the shack lies the head of the damned behemoth, blood pooling at the base.
Okay,
of
I'm
its
guessing it's
severed
not
neck.
the artist then.
Vittorio raises his head to the sky and lets out a triumphant cry. The creature of the abyss lays dead at my feet, and I remain. The Observer wanted me to come here. The symbols in their completion brought me here to this shack. A stepping stone to his own realm? I need to know more. Vittorio opens the door and finds a staircase descending into the earth. The room at the bottom of the stairs is dark, too deep for light from the setting sun to reach. Vittorio feels his way through the silent dark until he can see the shape of a candlestick. The touch of his hand brings it to life, a flame dancing a light on its wick. A self-lighting candle. Ingenious. Beneath layers of dust and cobwebs, Vittorio recognizes steel machines, wooden puzzle boxes, and jars of exotic fluids. He searches the room for more
Exotic
candles
fluids.
until all is illuminated. The workshop, exactly as it was described in my research. Centuries of otherworldly knowledge contained on ornate shelves. The Observer chose me, and it's from here I will follow him to his realm. A book on the desk catches his eye. The symbols on the cover, the symbols on his chest, they're not identical, but they are close. Vittorio brushes the dust off the book and is startled by the texture of the pages. Old, tough leather, every single page, each of them covered with tattooed symbols. He drops the book and backs away from it. No, not pages. Skin.
Skin.
Human skin,
Skin.
bound into a book. Tattooed skin just like his.
Skin.
Vittorio stands alone in the workshop and feels the vastness of the realms closing in on him.
Book of Skin. Huh. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. I'm still kind of... I'm still trying to figure out how the Observer, our Observer, is tied to Vittorio. In a weird way, other than, like, sort of looking alike. So he finds a book inside of a room of wooden puzzle boxes and jars of exotic fluids. Just sounds gross. Alright, let's see what the cutscene entails. Ew. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Oh, I thought they were just going to leave it there for a sec after the previous tone. Oh, the black fog. The hatch! Go for the hatch, Vittorio! Dude, this has to be tied to the Observer now. Yeah, this has to be tied to the Observer. Because, like, that is something that they were kind of touching upon. I would say like three tomes ago now. Previous one was Ghostface, I think. The one before that, it was like 2 or 3 tomes ago where they actually started teasing the idea with all these like various stories from different perspectives, where they start seeing like killers and things like that from other worlds and things like that. That's like the first time that you actually get to see like the game that we know, you know, hooking people, gens, and all that, being tied to the stories now. So I'm wondering if that is, if Vittorio has like the blood of the Observer of some sort tied in with them, which, I mean, that would be one way of doing it. I just wanted the Observer himself to be a part of the game, because that's what they were kind of leading up towards, instead of just kidding, this guy that kind of looks like the Observer, who has like a backstory that you're kind of unfamiliar with. I don't know, that's kind of a cop-out way of doing it. Because now I'm expecting like an outfit in the shop of Vittorio to look like the Observer of old, if you will. Like, here, I don't know if I can cue to this in time, but like, well, actually, there's no markings on, but basically this guy that we usually highlight in the intro, I'm waiting for them to tie it in with him. But yeah, I don't know. It remains to be seen if that is the direction they're going with. I mean, I would love for that to be the case, but I don't know. It's just kind of a lame way of doing it, because like they've kind of dipped off of the whole Observer angle in his tower for a long time, since I would say Tome 11, because I think 12 is when they highlighted. Oh, I kind of want to go back to some of those and just kind of like refresh myself after all of this. I might include it in the video or not, but yeah, I don't know. It's getting good here, I feel. Interesting that the hatch would lead him into the fog, and like Dwight being suspended from a hook by the knight, who unironically is camping him, I like to point out, like an asshole. Something completely unbadass of the knight, if you will, especially with the standard outfit that he was wearing, with the hair coming through the eye holes. All right, that was kind of good. So far, this is a decent. This is a big, better step up than the previous one. The previous one, I kind of almost fell asleep during, because I was just like, this is. I think I was just kind of like really tired, and B, it was just not enticing at all. I feel, because it like. The thing with licensed characters, they even mentioned this, is like if they do a licensed tome, they can't really do much with the backstory or for like cutscenes and things like that, because it's licensed. They only have so much wiggle room, because the IP holders aren't going to let them just dictate the future of their franchise, which is understandable. But for homegrown talent like the Knight, Vittorio, you know, people like that, they can do whatever they want. So. Yeah, that was enjoyable. So he goes from being captured by Tarhosh Kovacs, and he just planes walks out of it, and then he's just like in a weird looping of plane shifting, where he possibly met somebody similar to the Blight, or just somebody in a hooded figure who shoves his chest with a ancient torture device and tattoos him. And yeah, he basically keeps quantum leaping until he finds the way home, and he winds up into the world that we know of DBD. So that was kind of cool. Now let's see what the whole Tales of Red Crane's all about here.
Tale of the Red Crane 1. The strange thing, Saku reflected, was that she didn't seem to be aging. She had been traveling through the many realms, searching for her enemies for what felt like thousands of centuries, and yet she didn't feel a day older. There was so much she still didn't understand. She had learned about other worlds and people and their unique cultures and languages, and though she knew a lot about these different worlds, she knew very little about the many realms. This dark and mysterious place made of nightmares that she had unwittingly entered long ago while chasing down Black Serpent disciples through a veil of fog. Saku had tracked down and killed 12 of the 21 disciples. 9 remained. But Saku wasn't worried. She would get them sooner or later. Time was somehow on her side.
Lucky.
Now Saku followed bars of blue-tinged light along a track through dark tunnels of concrete covered in graffiti. She halted as she saw a bright light approach her. Quickly, she sprang to the side and vaulted up on a ledge, just as a train filled with bodies came charging past her with a rush of air and the stench of rotting flesh. When the train passed, Saku jumped back down on the tracks and continued through the darkness, following the glowing blue bars as the fog began to thicken, and she heard crows cawing somewhere in the distance. She instinctively grabbed the hilt of her katana as dozens of cannibals with gleaming red eyes and rotten teeth suddenly surrounded her.
Yeah, let's go.
The cannibals closed in on her slowly. Then, with a terrible shriek, they attacked. She evaded several blows with crude weapons and backed away. When they rushed her again, she unsheathed her katana and turned into a tempest of blood. With incredible speed, Saku cut through the horde like weeds. She fought 20 rounds before it was all over. Then she wiped her katana and walked away without looking back, as the sounds of crows feasting on freshly cut flesh echoed through the tunnel. Carefully, Saku followed the tracks and stopped only when she heard a voice calling out for help. It wasn't a voice she recognized, but it was somehow coming from all directions, as if it were in her head. Saku turned round and round, but didn't see anyone. She heaved a deep breath and figured the world was once again playing tricks on her, as it often did. Ignoring the voice, she continued her journey through the subway, and emerging out of the tunnel, she found herself submerged in an ocean of fog as she pushed her way into another realm.
Another planeshopper.
Tale of the Red Crane, 2. After many days of wandering through a rocky desert, Saku heard whispers in the breeze, leading her to a forest with thick, giant trees as tall as mountains. Cautiously, she followed the voice. Wondering
the
if
Black
the
Serpent
world would help her
Society!
on her journey to destroy the Black Serpent Society.
Oh, I forgot about them!
With her. As though the growing fog could read her thoughts, she
We're getting back
suddenly
to
saw
that?
a serpent head in the distance. Slowly, she approached the
Oh,
towering
so that's what the
structure.
Red Crane... Okay, yeah, they have mentioned this
She
before.
realized what it was. An offering to the Black Serpent. Bodies stacked upon bodies, all twisted and warped to resemble a serpent's head. Dripping vines as thick as a leg held the bodies together. A dozen symbols carved into the flesh writhed and crawled with worms and insects. Beneath the offering was a sign inscribed with crimson letters written in a language she didn't understand. She had seen several of these offerings back home, and she knew the creator was not far from the creation. Or, perhaps, was still embedded in the structure. With great care, Saku inspected every inch of the offering. None of the faces seemed to be alive. No nostrils flared, no eyes blinked, no fingers twitched. Then, as she turned away from the offering, she heard a laugh. A deep, sonorous laugh. Instantly, she peered in the darkness and saw a man in a dark robe beckoning her. Fixing her gaze on the Black Serpent disciple, she determined to end his days as a corruptor and slice him into ribbons. The blood in her veins warmed as she closed her eyes and slowed her breathing, preparing to attack. In her mind's eye, Saku saw herself rushing through the trees, leaping, and slicing right through his neck. Then her eyes snapped open, and she began a slow gait toward her enemy. Her pace quickened to a deadly sprint. Within moments, she lunged into the air with her gleaming katana. A second later, she landed, staring at the disciple as the head fell with a heavy thud and rolled to a stop by a pile of thick leaves. A geyser of arterial blood sprayed the ancient trees, but the torso didn't stagger, didn't convulse, didn't collapse. Instead, it squatted and searched the ground for its missing head. Realizing this was all a trick being played on her by a cruel world, she cursed her frustration as the severed head began to laugh at her.
Oh, that's mean.
The apparition stood, holding the laughing head, every cackle adding to her humiliation. With a terrible cry, Saku sliced the false serpent into 1,000 pieces, each piece burning like a bright orange ember as it fell and disintegrated into the stewing fog from which it had been born. After a long silence, Saku continued through the forest toward another realm, as massive branches suddenly crashed down all around her, trying to crush her like a bug. Slicing through the falling branches, she rushed through the onslaught, leaping, dodging, somersaulting, and she didn't stop until she was out of the woods.
Yeah, so I forgot about this. This is like from, I would say, like Tome 6 or 7-ish? Where this lady is like hunting down people of the society, and I think she has like an encounter with Oni at one point from like afar. Oh, I completely forgot about her. I can't believe they're just now picking her back up. Wow, okay.
Tale of the Red Crane, 3. For days, Saku pushed on blindly through the realms until she reached the edge of a rocky cliff. Ahead, she saw a tower standing atop a column of rock that rose from the darkness below. Just above the tower, there hovered a strange airship, covered in purple gore and dead creatures, with squid-like heads and tentacles dangling from the sides. A wooden ladder connected to the cockpit was lowered to the tower's roof. Someone was searching for something inside the tower. Cautiously, Saku moved along the rocky crest and noticed a wooden bridge extending from the cliff to the tower's entrance. Wanting to inspect the abandoned structure, she carefully inched across the creaking bridge and nearly fell 3 times. But each time she managed to regain her footing until finally she was at the base of the tower. Entering the tower, Saku soon discovered it was full of journals written in Korean and filled with illustrations of strange insects and creatures observed in the realm.
Now.
She moved from room to room as she ascended the spiral wooden stairs to the roof. In each room, she found stacks of endless journals of a despairing mind. A mind not unlike her own. A mind that longed for companionship and laughter and talks under moonlit skies. Saku had been alone for what seemed like an eternity. And more than anything, she missed talking and laughing with friends and family.
Hoping that the next leap would be the leap home.
Her journey had taken its toll on her. And for a second, just a second, she contemplated making this tower her final resting place. But as despair began to overwhelm her senses, she heard a voice calling out to her for help. A voice that seemed to be coming from the roof. With a start, Saku dashed up the stairs, unexpectedly scaring a young man who froze wide-eyed for a moment as though he recognized her. Then the young man grabbed a collection of scrolls and bolted up the stairs screaming for someone named Haley. Saku cried for him to stop and chased him up to the roof. Not to hurt him, but to know more about who he was, where he came from, and how he ended up traveling on an airship in this endless nightmare. But it was too late. By the time she rushed through the doorway, the airship ladder had been pulled into the cockpit, and the heavy motor was moaning a lonesome note into the endless abyss. Slowly but surely, the airship pushed through the billowing fog, sounding a deep foghorn now and then so as to ward off creatures of the abyss.
Or attract them.
Saku stared after the airship for a long time after it disappeared. Then she staggered back and collapsed beside a human skeleton secured in a bolted chair with a fishing rod in his hands. Countless bones of strange creatures he had pulled out of the abyss lay around him. Saku laughed out loud for a moment. Then she went silent, as tears began down her cheek. She shuffled back, grabbed the bottle in his bony hands, and soon downed the liquid fire. Then she grabbed the rod and cast a line out into the swirling fog below. There, Saku spent hours catching nothing and talking about everything to absolutely no one. Then she climbed over the edge of the outer wall, and for a moment she wanted to let go of everything and let herself fall, when suddenly she heard the voice. She fell back into a pile of bones with a terrible clatter and laughed and cursed at herself for letting the nightmare get to her. Clambering to her feet, she staggered down the stairs and continued her journey through the many realms.
Huh. Interesting. I don't think that's the Observer's Tower necessarily, but something similar.
Tale of the Red Crane, 4. Slightly hungover, Saku approached a graveyard of ancient statues carved out of rocks as large as mountains, illuminated by a shimmering green light that didn't seem to be coming from any apparent source.
Hi, Valentina.
As she moved through the massive, overgrown, crumbling arms and legs and heads on the ground, she couldn't help but notice the faces of the statues were blank. There were no features, no eyes, no cheeks, no lips, nothing. Just a blank slate. And as she passed the fallen statues, she heard a slight crumble and crackle of stone. Turning, she spotted the black serpent disciple in a thick black kimono,
Here we go.
meditating in the middle of the open palm of a severed stone hand. Narrowing
Get
her
him,
gaze,
Saku.
Saku stared at the disciple for a long while, trying to decipher if he was real or just another attempt for this dark world to humiliate her. An instinct told her he was one of the 21 she had followed into the many realms. Stealthily, she approached him like a panther on the hunt. She climbed the crumbling wrist and squeezed her way through 2 plump fingers. And just as she withdrew her katana with a ring and leaped to end his days as a servant of darkness, a massive hand caught her midair and lifted her to face its empty face. Then the empty face seemed to morph in and out of 1,000 different faces, as though she were staring at the very mask of eternity.
Oh, that would be a dope-ass mask.
Saku
Just
shuddered
changing
at the
faces.
sight and quickly turned to
Oh,
the
that would be
open
amazing.
palm on the ground. The disciple was already gone. She cursed something terrible. Her face hardened and she twisted and thrust out of the giant statue's grip, falling on the ground like a nimble cat. A second later, a fist came crashing down, sending a rain of dirt and debris high in the air. With great speed, Saku evaded blow after blow as the giant statue devastated the graveyard, searching for her. The giant statue lifted limbs and thrust them against the ground, but Saku leaped from hiding place to hiding place as she waited for her chance to escape. And through this graveyard of fallen idols, she played cat and mouse for 20 or so rounds before the giant finally gave Saku the opportunity she needed to escape through a column of swirling fog.
Hoping that the next leap would be the leap home. Sorry, I keep making that joke. Yeah, let's keep going. Saku sounds like a bad. Actually, she is a badass from what I remember from her first appearance. Which, yeah, we're gonna try to tie up some of these stories here. I think a little bit, at least with this one, because I want to see where she was first mentioned. I think it was like Tome 7, and then she just wasn't mentioned again for like the longest time, I think, until now. I really just need to bone up on all the stories here, I think. And just try to, like, piece it all together.
Tale of the Red Crane, 5. A scream rang out from just beyond the woods. Saku bounded up the hill past dead creatures and impaled bodies and entered the arched doorway of an overgrown coliseum. She rushed up crumbling steps into the stands and moved slowly toward the ancient arena. She froze suddenly at the sight of the Black Serpent disciple she had been tracking for the last few days or weeks. She couldn't quite remember. He was lying on his stomach, eating dirt, groaning and agonizing with 4 bleeding stumps where arms and legs used to be. A pool of sticky crimson blood grew around him.
Gross.
Slowly, Saku approached the dying man, waiting for him to disappear into the fog like all the other cruel apparitions the world had created for its amusement. But when he didn't disappear or laugh at her, she realized he was real and not a fabrication of the nightmare. Saku moved closer and prodded and pushed the torso with her foot until he was lying on his back, staring up at her with bloodshot eyes and trembling lips. Frothy saliva and blood made bubbles as he desperately begged for a quick end. Instead, Saku stepped back, sat cross-legged in the dirt, and watched him die the slow and miserable death he deserved. As he begged for the swiftness of her sword, crows appeared from the darkness and surrounded the squirming worm of a man. Then they picked and pecked at the human worm until there was nothing left but bones. When the crows disappeared into the darkness, Saku rose and dusted the dirt off her kimono. Taking a deep, calming breath, she withdrew her katana and decapitated the head. She watched the head roll away as the sky darkened and it began to rain bone and gore.
Oh.
Saku looked up at the sky, confused but not surprised. She had never experienced anything like it, and sensing danger, she rushed into a nearby tunnel, wiping off chunks of flesh and pulling out a piece of sharp bone that had pierced her shoulder. Patiently, Saku waited at the edge of the tunnel as the arena thrashed with flesh and filled with blood. Over the thumping organs and entrails, she heard a clang behind her. Slowly, she turned around, face dozens upon dozens of undead gladiators.
Oh boy.
With a deep sigh, she held her katana at the ready as she slowly backed into the gore-covered arena. The gladiators approached her slowly, then, all at once,
Get him,
rushed
Saku.
her with axes, spears, and heavy swords. Saku battled the gladiators until the last head rolled and the hellish shrieks and cries ceased. Exhausted, she staggered back and collapsed into a crimson stew of death. There she stared up at the night sky, hoping against hope to wake up from the nightmare that had become her life. Tale of the Red Crane, 6. After weeks of tracking Black Serpent disciples through strange and brutish realms, Saku found herself pushing through a marsh of thick grass and deep putrefied flesh, like mud. Several times she got stuck, then found the strength to pull herself free and continue, despite the barrage of dark and despairing thoughts that assailed her with every step. At last, she traversed the marsh but collapsed right at the edge. With trembling arms and legs, she clambered to her feet and froze, staring at jagged mountains in the distance. Paralyzed by despair, she realized she didn't know what she would do once she fulfilled her promise and killed the last disciple. Nothing she did would ever bring her clan back, and for a moment, she wanted to fall back and let herself sink into oblivion.
Mood.
There would be nothing after. No anger, no hate, no revenge. Just loneliness and all the memories of what had been lost. Slowly, Saku extended her bloody hands in front of her face and stared at them for a long moment. Then she lowered her hands and winced in pain. A slow trickle of pus dripped down the length of her arm from a deep wound. Saku had to take care of the injury before it festered. Or she didn't. She wasn't sure what she wanted anymore. The despair was stronger than it had ever been. It clouded her judgment, blurred meaning and memory so that she couldn't fully remember her reasons, her purpose, her past. Now the only thing she felt was abandoned by everyone she ever knew and loved. And she knew this was an absurd thought, but couldn't help thinking it. Saku stood there for what felt like an eternity, just staring at the mountain before her. Feeling alone, she closed her eyes and tried to remember bits and pieces of her life. With difficulty, she remembered faces, voices, and laughter. And she remembered her promise. Her promise to bring her clan honor by finishing what they had started. By eliminating the Black Serpent Society once and for all.
Yeah.
But first, Saku needed to eliminate her doubt and despair. Crippling thoughts and feelings amplified by the living nightmare. Opening her eyes, she crushed each dark thought like a psychic bug. Then, from a small pouch, she pulled out a piece of cloth and proceeded to dress her wound. As she did, a strained voice called out for help. At first faintly, and then louder and louder. She didn't try to understand any of it. And though she knew the nightmare could be setting her up for
It's a trap.
She followed the voice toward the mountains.
I wonder what the significance of this is. If, I mean, they're painting Saku to be a badass here, which obviously she is from, you know, all these writings and whatnot, but she could never, I don't think she could be a survivor. Unless they give her, like, really fucking OP skills or something. Because, like, she's killing things with, like, a katana and whatnot, and I don't know, maybe she'll be the first survivor with a weapon or something. I don't know, who knows. But there's got to be some significance to this.
7. Through the silver light of the moon, Saku followed a trail of twisted, crushed, and half-eaten bodies, searching for the one calling out to her for help. She clambered over piles of armored soldiers from all time periods who had fought a hopeless battle against an enormous creature with dozens of tentacles the size of buildings. The lifeless tentacles still held mangled soldiers and civilians in its death grip, mouths wide open, frozen in terror. It seemed like the creature had attacked hundreds of survivors from other worlds who had perhaps come together to make some kind of home in the nightmare. But it didn't matter what anyone did to feel normal again. Somehow the horror always found a way. Saku had seen it countless times during her travels throughout the many realms. The fragments of communities that had somehow risen from the ashes of destroyed and forgotten worlds, only to be destroyed by some incomprehensible creature from the abyss. It was futile. Taking in the aftermath of the battle, Saku sighed at the carnage all around her. It had taken hundreds of soldiers to kill the creature, and yet she wasn't sure if it was dead. As she scanned the bodies, she noticed the tentacles twitching now and then. But she ignored the erratic movements as involuntary death spasms as she followed a decomposing tentacle through a wall of fog toward a faint neighing sound. As she followed the tentacle, the neighing grew louder and somehow made words in her head. She kicked over and pushed aside bodies, searching for the source of the pleas, until at last she found a struggling horse in a thick stew of gore trapped underneath a massive tentacle. Cautiously, she squatted beside the struggling horse and watched it for a long
Maurice?
moment as its desperate calls formed words in her mind. She didn't try to understand any of it, and she didn't think it could be understood. This world had shown her that everything she thought impossible was possible, and that anything that could be imagined could somehow exist somewhere in the nightmare.
New best friend story arc?
Now, Saku told the horse everything was going to be okay
Sorry.
and that she would get him out of his predicament as she struggled to lift the tentacle. Her words seemed to reassure him, but just as he neighed to thank her, the massive eye of the creature blinked open. The eye blazed like no eye should ever blaze.
I gotta use the restroom. I'll be
And
right
without
back.
hesitation, Saku whirled and plunged her katana into its pupil. Blood splattered and instantly filled the white of the eye, and the creature shrieked terribly as it issued its last breath. Withdrawing her katana, Saku returned to the horse, sliced the massive tentacle, and freed him.
Yeah.
Then she mounted the grateful horse and rode off into the abyss.
Let's go. I'll be right back. 1 sec. There we go. So yeah, I don't want to jump to conclusion here. Now that I'm back. But I saw like a Twitter post when I was checking up on the DDoSing fiasco from DBD that they had what looked like Maurice. Where is it here? It looked like they had Maurice as like the it was like they had him in a promo video here, like the Tome. So that would be kind of interesting if that's how they tie in, like, oh, this is where Maurice has been. But it wouldn't make much sense, I guess. We'll see here. Here. Let's continue onward as I cue this up.
The Red Crane, a fury of blood. The gory head Saku tossed into the fire ignited and sent glowing embers thrusting into the night sky. The dancing flames lighted her somber expression as she unraveled a scroll made of human skin and examined the ancient symbols. She couldn't decipher what any of the symbols meant, but as firelight glinted in her eyes, she noticed that several of the symbols began to shiver and squirm and change into other symbols. It was as if the symbols were alive. But Saku knew this to be impossible, and was sure her mind was playing tricks on her. With a start, she tossed the scroll in the growing fire. Then she rose and stood amongst the hacked corpses of her enemy, adding logs of bone and flesh to the hungry, upleaping flames. And there she stood, slowly feeding the fire, hoping against hope that one day she would rid her beloved country of the Black Serpent Society. Saku watched the pyre burn until all that remained was a pile of ashes and the untarnished scroll. She squatted by the smoldering heap and pulled the scroll out of the ashes as she heard the distinct click behind her.
Sorry about that.
Return what is ours and you will live. Saku turned to face several thugs in serpent armor with pistols at her. Her answer was the gleam of a blade and a fury of blood.
Hey Angel, how's it going? Yeah, so I think it might actually be Maurice, because this is what they were hyping up page 4 with when it got unlocked. It's like, oh, is Maurice in the tome? So, this could be an interesting story arc here. If just Maurice vanished and then somehow got wound up, trapped beneath some eldritch horror tentacle thing that Saku just took care of.
Year 7, day 373, night. I've been collecting and reading all the stories related to the Red Crane, especially those that relate her journey after she chases the last of the Black Serpent Society into another dimension. A recurring idea in the stories is that this dimension is one of thought and memory. In other words, we can bring about our darkest imaginings just by focusing on them. Seems to me, then, the first battlefield one must negotiate is the battlefield of the mind. Year 7, day 398, afternoon. Several survivors happened upon the ruins of an airship. No bodies or signs of life. Reminded me of the story Sam shared with us the other night, about the survivors traveling through a nightmarish world using a makeshift airship. I should search the ruins and collect items to see if there are any actual links to the stories. Maybe we should make a collective effort to get it up and running. Didn't seem like such a bad idea.
Through a nightmarish world using a makeshift airship. Huh. Interesting. I wonder what the cutscene's gonna be here. Oh hell yeah, Saku gonna be a fucking badass here. An airship map? That would be kind of cool. Oh. Why is it struggling? Oh! Oh, I don't do eye horror that well. Why is the game struggling to play a cutscene? What the fuck? Oh, God, I wasn't ready for that. Yeah, so I don't think that it was necessarily Maurice per se. I don't think. Or maybe it was an ancestor of Maurice. Who knows? But yeah, Saku's a fucking badass. Hey, this is my horse now. Stab you in the eye. New survivor? They couldn't make her into a survivor. She's way too fucking cool to be a survivor. She would need a katana, and yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're gonna make her into a survivor, which probably means that they will. That was our horse. She freed him? Maybe. I mean, it did say she found a horse. It didn't necessarily say it was our horse. And maybe for all we know, DBD was just like, oh, do we have any horse assets? Oh, use Maurice. To hype up page 4. Where was it here? Yeah, here we go. Yeah, this is basically what the cutscene was. Cautiously, she squatted beside the horse and watched it for a long moment, and this recalls for him. Yep. Everything's gonna be okay. Should we get him out of his predicament? Both Maurice and this horse are a him, so it could be. And the massive eye on the creature blinked. Oh. And that's basically where I had to run off to the bathroom. I was like, I got a BRB. Yeah, wow. Now, real quick, where did the story first start? I gotta see real fast here. Where Saku was first mentioned. I thought it was in 7. Arcus. Here's the ruins. That's about Hattie and all that. Which, I mean, Hattie is from the whole Tome library, so, I mean, it's not uncommon for them to pull people out of the books here, so to speak. Terra Arachna. That's the land with all the fucking spiders taking over. Which I would love to get back to that. I would love a fucking spider killer in this game. 6. Notes from the absurd Emperor Dwight. Yeah, ever since that, I was like, no, we gotta kill Dwights. We can't have this happening. Evil Eyes... Hattie and Jordan. How far back is this? Talking about Claudette. Arcus. Arcus is from the Observer guy himself, from what I remember. No cutscene. Through the looking glass. I know they've mentioned the Red Serpent or the Black Serpent Society with Saku before. I just don't remember how far back though. 10 was about Saw. This is more Hattie. Oh, is this the rabbits? Huh. Oh, here we are, the Red Crane, yeah. Yeah, so this is where this is first mentioned. Yeah, Saku Nanako, or, I'm sorry, Nakano. Saku Nakano. It brings it the whole foreign airship and all that stuff. So the stuff that we just went through just now is initially started in Tome 10. Yeah, the enemies to her clan, the Black Serpent Society, served a 9-headed serpent made of black mist. They believed the Black Serpent would grant them powers and boons beyond human... Oh, the fact that they mentioned boons... beyond human comprehension in this world and the next in exchange for unquestioning devotion. They were convinced that the Black Mist Serpent was a demon that slithered through these wooded, cursed areas, creating doorways into what they called the belly of the serpent, or just the belly. And it just kind of documents how Saku's just a fucking badass, but she, I think, has an encounter with what seems like the Oni. The belly of the serpent. Yeah, they were like cramming fucking passages here back in Tome 10. Or in some of the previous tomes. I kind of liked it when it was just... they gave out like 4 stories per tome. Black Serpent Society believed that within the belly there was lost knowledge and power from all these consumed worlds that could help them usher in a golden age of peace, prosperity, and abundance. Their dedication, devotion, ritualistic killings were, in the end, for the betterment of humanity. The Red Crowned Clan, however, believed that the promise of a golden age was nothing more than a cosmic ruse, a shiny gold lure to snag minnows, fish, and whales in the abyss. Which I think that's what Saku's belonged to, because she was wearing red, as we just saw. Oh yeah, here we are. This time she silently lowered herself by a tree as she heard the pounding footfalls of a giant samurai in shiny green and gold armor approaching. She heard him smashing bushes and trees with his kanaba, which is the dick stick, as I usually like to call it, as he searched for her in the shadows. She knew without seeing him that she was being hunted by the samurai that had been corrupted and turned into a demon by the Black Mist Serpent. Her sister had told her many tales about the samurai, how he had once been a man of honor and conviction, how he had haunted and executed corrupt merchants and false samurai, how peasants and villagers began calling him a demon because of his savage methods, and how he ultimately had been turned into the very thing he hated most, the very thing the stories depicted him as, the Oni samurai. So yeah, so she is, if anything, I would like to see her tied in with Oni in some way. But I don't think she's going to be a survivor. At least not yet. Unless there's some way that strips her of her, like, her katana and winds up in the fog that we'll have to, like, incorporate her. She'd be awesome. I mean, she would have to have, like, some fucking swift running defensive maneuvers for perks or something OP in that nature, I feel. But yeah, go through Tome 10. I mean, we've already treaded through ground like this, but like that's basically where if we go over here, that's basically where this whole Tale of the Red Crane story picks up from there. Man, that's a fucking blast from the past. I'm actually kind of glad that they mentioned that again. And of course this, Vittorio possibly having ties with the Observer that we know. I don't remember, I'm trying to remember where the Observers, the plurals, also kind of mentioned. And I'm getting shades of, I think it was the Halloween event, I want to say, which you can't look up. I mean, we've documented it, but you can't, like, it's not in the compendium yet. So I don't know if it's just something that they haven't thought about archiving yet, or if it's non-canonical to what's going on with everything else with the other 13 tomes. But yeah, I like it. I'm hoping this one was a lot better. I'll say this one was a lot better than the other tomes, or rather the previous one with Ghostface. Mainly because that one was more dealing with like highlighting the backstory of Ghostface, and I think Michaela got some fluff out of it, and that's really where I kind of just like tuned out a little bit. But yeah, if you see this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, and all that. And here on Twitch, we're gonna get into some killer rounds. I can't believe I'm still kind of blown away that I kind of passed through this outfit. I gotta look back and see what I said about it, because I thought, I guess at the time I was like, whatever, it's the night, you know. But after hearing the backstory and seeing the cutscene, I was like, okay, I have a new appreciation for this. This looks pretty awesome. And it's weird that the actual outfit isn't, the bonus outfit isn't an outfit, if you will. There you go, the Deep Rift, which it has the same blue hue that the previous tome also highlighted. So that was kind of to me, but yeah. On YouTube, I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully I can get the content out in a timely fashion for Tome 15. I plan on getting everything caught up here sooner rather than later. I just got to get the time and then just get it done, you know. That's all I need to do. So here on Twitch, we're going to play some rounds, and yeah, I'll see you then.